The next 3 weeks, I want to talk about the Holy Spirit. I want to talk about the Holy Spirit because every now and then, the church, and not just our church, but the church universal, with the exception of the Pentecostals and the holiness folks, oftentimes do not even think of the Spirit in its interaction in the church. But it is the Spirit that takes our religion as something that we just think about happened in the past, but makes it alive now. It is the Spirit that energizes folks in the church. Every now and then it is nice to hear an amen in the church, because you know that they're alive. Every now and then it is good to hear people be able to testify to what God has done in their lives. Every now and then it is kind of good to see people enjoy, actually dance in the church, because they're so happy. And maybe even laugh in the church because God has touched them. But so often in the life of the church, we get a little bit afraid of the Spirit. Because the Spirit can shake us up, like those valley of the dry bones. Sometimes you can come into church on some Sunday mornings. Could be this one, could be another one. I've talked about it before. We look like we are those bones in the valley. Dry, without sinew, and lifeless. And you wonder where God is. God is here, but for whatever reason, we ain't fired up with God at that particular time. There have been times I've had people that have been so fired up by what Jesus has done in their lives, and they try to explain that to the church, and the church itself will be suspect of that testimony. Why? Because they have not had that experience. They have not been so fired up in a relationship with God that when they hear somebody else say what God has done for them in their lives, they get scared. Because they are confronting the reality that maybe God has not been energized in their lives for a while. There's been more than once that folks have left congregations I've been at because their excitement the church cannot deal with. And they don't feel nurtured. And so they go elsewhere where their spiritual life will be nurtured. So it's good every now and then to lift up the Spirit and the current activity of God in the church, in your own personal lives. This morning I wanted to look at 2 texts this morning from the Hebrew Scriptures and to look at the Hebrews looked at the Spirit of God. The first text that I read this morning was from Genesis chapter 2. The second text that we read was actually Psalm 51. And the last text, there's a good old hymn, I can't even remember the words anymore, from the valley of the dry bones.